Welcome into another edition of New Track Record Podcast from the WELT Studios. Caleb Hatch, Justin Kinney with you. It's Fast Friday. Friday, May 16th. We're seeing some big speeds, even with the hybrid. We're seeing some drama on track. We'll recap, probably quicker than normal.
Yes.
The Indy GP, Sonsio Grand Prix, technically the name, won by Alex Palou. Who else? We did have an on-track pass for the lead. We did have some intrigue. I thought it was a good race, especially for the Indy GP non-wet edition. I thought it was entertaining.
Yes, I mean, for a race that we largely consider is going to be largely boring, except if it's wet, is that more of an indication that we found it entertaining how boring the races have been thus far, or was it Grand Prix-like? I think the addition of having to run both tire compounds helped, at least the drama. It doomed Graham Rahal for having to run the blacks on the final stint.
I mean,
eventually he was going to have to run them.
Going black, right?
Correct. He went red, black.
I mean, come on. Right?
Well, it almost seemed like they just kept kicking the can down the alley, so to speak, because they ran them in practice, and that's why they went 1, 2, 3 in practice 2. And they burned those new reds. I don't think anybody else did in practice. So they were already behind with the reds, and they kind of just shot their shot. Eventually, it was going to bite them on the back end, and it just so happened. So, I mean, a good weekend, I guess. The finishes, and well, screw it. This will be my first one. The finishes were not indicative of the pace that Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan showed, which is kind of, to me, a limitation of their potential. Is they really had to really go out of sequence with the reds to have a chance to make an impact. They did, but when it counted, they faded. Also, I didn't realize Louis Foster was in the studio here with me with the mustache. Looking good there, Louis. So, for me, it's tough to get excited about Rahal because, okay, they were 1, 2, 3 in practice, but they had an alternate strategy with the Reds. And then, they qualified well, but their best finish with Graham of 6th after leading the most laps. It was just opportunity lost, I felt, for RLL.
I feel like, to me, when you go back to the strategy, since we're just diving right in, our 3 things from the Indy GP, and then we'll get to Fast Friday, Indy qualifying preview later on in the show. I think for me, with what Rahal did, look, Alex Palou started on scuff reds. So there was always that opportunity that, if Graham starts on new reds, sticker reds, make the pass, and then just see if you can create a gap. That's what they did the first stint. But here's the thing is, he got stuck behind, and it's been so long. Was it Jacob Abel?
Yes.
Yeah. Once you got stuck behind Jacob Abel, I thought they went a lap or two too long. I understand you're calculating tires and fuel and all these things, but like once you're getting stuck in lap traffic, you got to make a move, right? I mean, you got to come in and get out of that. And I understand you could come back out and it'd be different, but at least you have fresh tires, so you should be able to get through cars, unless it's someone who just pitted like a lap before you. Right. I think that to me was more of a factor. Yes, you could point to the final pit stop where he had to wait. Otherwise, there would have been contact between Kirkwood and Rahal. I mean, that's just unlucky timing.
True.
Look, if they would have sent him, it would have been a crash. We wouldn't be talking about a 6th place finish. We'd be talking like 25th or whatever. Right. So I thought, once again, look, Christian Lundgaard did not have a good day. Had the pit exit penalty. McLaren didn't have pace, really.
I mean, it was a bad weekend for Lundgaard. Guy didn't want to talk after not getting out of the fast, or not getting into the fast 12 during qualifying on Friday.
And we thought he was kind of the magic bullet for Rahal in terms of on the IMS road course, but turns out they've just figured this track out. Unfortunately, as we'll get to later on, still can't figure out the oval. But I think, to me, the biggest thing is the tire strategy. At least alternate, right? I mean, Palou went red, black, black, red, right? Whereas Graham went red, red, black, black. There's no justification whatsoever for not running Reds on the last stint?
Other than they were hoping something would happen to keep them out front. I think because when you looked at Graham Rahal led 49 laps, it just felt like they were putting off the inevitable, that they were going to have to run the blacks. And maybe they were hoping that attrition would happen or something, or maybe a sizable amount of yellow. I don't know what they were waiting for, because they knew they were going to have to run the blacks at some point, and they were going to have to run 2 stints of blacks. And I think they waited as long as they possibly could. You mentioned maybe trying to get a gap, but when you were stuck behind Abel, and the fact that you weren't able to get by Jacob Abel, as much as you want to complain about getting him out of the way, it's his right to stay on the lead lap, to fight to stay on the lead lap. So inevitably it didn't work for Graham Rahal. And in the end, you just kind of walk away as an opportunity missed for RLL. They come around so infrequently for that team that when they can't capitalize and not even have a driver finish in the top 5 is disappointing.
Do you think, though, if not for the potential run-in with Kirkwood, like we're talking about a top 5 finish for Graham, I think that's the single thing that prevented it. The strategy didn't work. It worked early. Overall, though, if you're Rahal, do you come away disappointed, or do you come away, and I'm talking as a team, do you come away disappointed, or do you come away saying, hey, we can build on this?
Well, how many times have we said that over the last several years with Rahal about, hey, they can build on this? They've always been pretty solid at the GP, and then it never seems to translate onto the oval. And so for me, it's just kind of repeating. It's like we've seen this before, where the weekend goes well, whether it's at the GP or somewhere else for Rahal, and you're going, hey, maybe this is it. And then it just kind of falls back down to what we see race after race. So that's kind of where I'm at. Okay, that's nice. You didn't maximize the potential you had for the weekend, and now I'm just kind of expecting Rahal to slip back into obscurity. It would be great if it didn't, but heading into qualifying weekend at the Speedway, are we confident that there aren't going to be at least one Rahal car battling for the last row? I'm not confident at all.
Yeah, I think that's a guarantee.
Right? So what growth is there, really? So it was a disappointment for Rahal, for sure.
Okay.
So my second, or
my first?
Your first? Okay.
I guess. Go ahead. Yeah. I think my first, since you went with the Rahal angle, I'm going to go with Will Power. In terms of Penske cars, highest finishing Penske, finished on the podium, but it's more of what he had to say about the race that I think is more of an indictment of what we've seen in this hybrid era. And Joey Barnes 85 posted this on socials. Power said, it was a solid day, didn't pass a single car on track, just like Barber. Started 7th, finished 3rd.
Didn't pass a single car on track. It was all pit sequence. So that's where we're at, folks. And the problem is we've thought this was an entertaining race, but is it by the 2025 standards that are so low? I think it is.
Yes, this was the most entertaining race, in my opinion, of the 2025 season. Now, you throw this race to races in the past, it's very mid.
Right.
Very mid.
But it's where we are. So, Will Power, one of the few guys I think that has the respect of the paddock and, quite frankly, the series to be able to speak out. We've heard Alexander Rossi speak out on off track about his opinions on the car, and then just recently in the last day or so, Pato O'Ward speaking out against it. So these are established drivers in this series. You're not going to hear, Robert Schwartzman, Louis Foster, Nolan Siegel talk about how bad the racing is, but these guys that have been around, that are respected, that are listened to, it is advantageous for them to speak out. And it was nice to hear Will Power. And we'll get into the interview with Roger Penske that Bob Pockrass had on Fox Sports Online, and unfortunately, not one question asked about the concerns of the on-track product.
Well, I don't think the TV partner is going to bring that up.
True, that's true. But
it wasn't brought up in an interview in the broadcast booth today with Doug Bowles. Now, Doug Bowles was talking about how great the racing was been, but he was in particular talking about the Indy 500, which is fair.
Right.
Like that, I don't think people are going to disagree with.
And here's kind of my thing is in this, how do I say this without dabbling into politics, is you have a leader, I think, in IndyCar that will, what would we love to see in May? A state of the series, right? Or at least once a year sometime. But that opens you up then to questions that you cannot control, right? So I feel like when Roger Penske is opening up to, as you mentioned, the TV partner who's going to throw him softballs, as opposed to maybe some actually relevant questions to the series, that's what he's going to cater to. A controlled environment with questions from that you can vet or at least know that aren't going to ambush you or anything like that. And you can come out as all rosy and positive and all that stuff. That's kind of where I feel IndyCar is right now. And I'd love to be proven wrong if Roger puts himself out there this year, because you can look in recent past where he's talked to Marshall Pruett and stuff like that. But this year, this season, where he puts himself out there to answer some tough questions, because he's not right now. And unfortunately, we're left with this for the foreseeable future. And then it's thrown out there by Roger or with Marshall Pruett that it's tough finding a place where this car, the new car, can trim weight. So now you're looking even to the next iteration of the chassis going, it's just going to be the same thing. And if anybody out there listening hasn't read Marshall Pruett's article at racer.com about why, the whys, which are we've been asking this season, why, it is a great article. Talks to so many different people, so many different drivers, why it's such a challenge, and also conversely, why it fits Alex Palou's driving style so much as well. So it answered a lot of questions, at least the why, but how you're going to react to the why in terms of IndyCar, those questions aren't being asked, or at least to the right people, but they're not putting themselves in the position to be asked those questions.
You mentioned Pato Ward's comments. He said the roots to IndyCar is that the racing's amazing, but we don't even have our roots to fall back on to say that it is, because it hasn't been. The racing has sucked. Talking about the quality of racing with the hybrid unit. So to put that into perspective. But yeah, willpower, just saying, look, it's a parade on track. Doing my best. But when you're not passing a single car on track and you're getting a podium finish, it's not good, in my opinion.
No.
Not good.
Not at all.
All right, what's your number 2?
Well, I guess we'll talk about the elephant in the room and talk about Alex Palou and just the run he is on. And I put this tweet out, and I know it's not apples to apples. I get it, but it's also very telling that currently, going into qualifying weekend, Alex Palou has a 97-point lead in the point standings. Yes, we don't talk championship. This is different because of the dominance we're seeing.
Unprecedented times.
Yes. The distance between first and second right now in the IndyCar standings is 97 points.
Essentially 2 race wins.
The point differential between first and seventh in Formula One is 90 points. And yes, I know there aren't as many points up for a Grand Prix weekend in Formula One, but they've also had one more race than IndyCar has. But I think the point is, for so long, we've said Formula One is boring because the same driver wins. And right now, we're seeing that in IndyCar. And I've said it before, like, it's great to study history and see the dominant performances of the greats, but when you're experiencing it, it gets kind of boring, right? What is that line between appreciating what Alex Palou is doing and really falling into this is boring?
It's a very fine line.
It is a very fine line.
I think with last Saturday, the fact that it was a challenge and just not, a runaway. Yes, he ran away once he got to the front, and there was a caution, which was shocking.
Right.
What was it, like 408 laps straight of green flag running?
I love the reaction for the booth, by the way, when the yellow was finally thrown. It was a party atmosphere.
Like, what is this?
Yeah.
But I do think, yes, it's a very fine line. But to appreciate what he is doing look, he opened up talking about, fans say, hey, you should go to F1. And to be clear, I think some fans are rooting him to go F1 so he's not in the series anymore.
And I think some teams are probably rooting for him to go to F1.
But also, the reality is, if you're dominating a spec series to this level, and he's been far and away the best driver in IndyCar for several years now. I get that there are other challengers. Obviously, Newgarden's the best at Indy, and Pato Ward's probably second best. Pato Ward's a fan favorite, all these things. I mean, Dixon, right? Other drivers. But what he's doing should be worthy of getting an F1 test. And Honda's going to be back in Formula One. Remember, they were leaving, and then they decided to come back. They'll be back with Aston Martin in 26. Look, just give him a test, right? I mean, he's tested with McLaren in the past, and I get there's the ugly fallout there, and that probably doesn't help his circumstances to begin with, but it is a shame that he's not going to get a chance. And I guess that, to me, is a bummer. And you could say, well, he blew his chance by what went down with McLaren, but what he's doing on track is still worthy of an opportunity, in my opinion.
Do you think it has helped? Let's look at Cadillac F1 and Dan Tauris's involvement with Formula One with Cadillac, and also his involvement in IndyCar. Correct?
Yeah.
With Andretti Global.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Could that help? Everybody's been so hyper focused on Colton Herta, but I have to think it helps Alex Palou at least being on the radar of Cadillac F1 when Dan Tauris is witnessing these performances with a tie to the inside of the paddock. He's in the paddock, basically. He's going to be in the paddock of Formula One. I mean, does that help to at least maybe get a test or an FP1 or something with Cadillac F1?
You would think, but in the racer story, Palou said, I would put it as I'm not looking to go there. I had my half a chance or maybe more like 10% chance and it didn't work out. And then in terms of Cadillac and their discussions, look, they've talked with Sergio Perez, Valtteri Bottas, believed to be the front-running candidates for at least one of the seats. Palou's name has never been publicly mentioned by team principal Graham Loudon, who acknowledged the likes of Colton Herta and Jack Crawford as American options should the team look to pair one with an experienced F1 driver. I mean, that's directly from the story by Marshall Pruitt and Chris Medlin, who covers F1 for Racer, along with Pruitt, obviously, covering IndyCar. So,
I mean, do you think there's a point where Alex Palou's dominance gets so great that F1 has to notice? Let's say he wins 12 races this year. I mean, does that put him on the radar?
It should.
I mean, is there nothing that Alex Palou can do is what I'm asking to put him on the radar of Formula One? I don't know. I don't know.
I think if we're talking, if he wins, say 8, 9, 10 races, which, I mean, you're looking at half the schedule. If you're winning 8 or 9. Yeah, he's at 4. I think that puts him on the radar. Now, do I think anything's going to change? No, I think that seat is going to go to Sergio Perez, and I think the other seat is going to go to Jack Crawford or Colton Herta. I mean, it goes to Herta if he can finish 4th in the championship to get a super license, and or if he's, just a few points shy, pick up some points in FP1s later in the year. I don't know what team that would be through, but
he's got work to do. He's 9th in the standings.
Yeah, he's got work to do for sure. But he closed last year strong after up and down first handful of races. I think it's a bummer because we used to see this back in the day, right? Back when kart was king, where guys would go over. We had Jacques Villeneuve, you had Cristiano Domata, Alex Zanardi, and it didn't work out for everyone. To be clear, Michael Andretti did not work. And other guys turned down opportunities, like Alan Sir Jr. turned down opportunities to go F1. So, I don't know. I think it's unfortunate that ship has sailed because he's 28 years old. I think that's part of the problem. Yeah, that's
the big thing.
If he was 24, 25, maybe there'd still be more of a chance.
Yeah.
But F1 is a young man's game unless you've been there forever, like a Lewis Hamilton or Fernando Alonso or Perez can step away and come back, Hülkenberg, etc. Even though Hülkenberg's... Has he ever podiumed We're still waiting on his first
I
podium.
don't think he's ever podiumed.
Yeah, that's one that
and he still gets jobs. I just don't understand.
never understood that one either.
It's a safe hire, I guess.
I guess
because your expectations are low.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know, but yeah, I just coming around to it. Appreciating watching greatness and boredom is a fine line, and when they compare and contrast with AJ Foyt. I guess it was a different era, but I'm looking at Foyt's dominance. He's still, through 85 races, has like 10, 12 more wins than Palou has. But if Foyt was now, would we be saying this is boring? I kind of feel like we would. So
it's a different world in racing, too.
It absolutely is a different world. So, and maybe Palou's greatness is more appreciated by the older demographics that saw legends and witness legends and what they did, but everybody wants to see the best of the best. But when it starts happening and the dominant we saw it with Max Verstappen, and it's not as easy as saying Red Bull was so much better than everybody else because his teammate was never consistently there, whether it was Sergio Perez or whoever. But it got boring, and we're kind of in that realm right now with IndyCar is. Everybody wants to see greatness, but then be careful what you wish for sometimes.
Got boring with Lewis Hamilton. At least he had Nico Rosberg taking a title away from him and giving him a good fight at one point. Got boring with Michael Schumacher. I mean, that's just how F1 has gone historically. My number two? Yeah, my number two. Let's talk my guy, Rinus VeeKay. 24th to 9th. Outstanding drive. Just continues to get results, and he's good at this track, right? We know this is his only career win is on the road course, but to do what he did at Barber, get fourth, just miss out on a podium, and have one of the best drives of his career outside, of course, his win in 2021 at the IMS road course, continues to be impressive at Dale Coyne, and he's carrying that team and what they're doing a year removed from just trying to make it through the season with drivers and seats, I think is very impressive. And I'm going to continue to be the guy to tout what he's doing. And I get that we don't talk points, but he is 10th in the standings.
Which would be huge for Dale Coyne Racing. And we talked about it at length last week about everything coming together to make sure he was in a seat because it was deserved. The last couple of years have kind of been a joke for Coyne in terms of the revolving seats, and just basically whoever could bring a budget to run 1, 2, 3 races was going to get a chance. And what Rinus VeeKay has been able to do has been absolutely tremendous. I mean, the last couple of years, our expectations for Coyne drivers is like just finish, like don't wreck, don't drive up that repair budget. Now you have Rinus VeeKay and saying consistent top 10s finishes could be for this team throughout the season. And what Rinus VeeKay has really proven over the course of his career is he's fast everywhere. It's not just ovals. It's not just road courses. He's fast everywhere. And he has really given that team as a whole a big shot in the arm, I feel.
I think we kind of forget because he's been in the series so long. He was once the young gun coming in who had a really good career in lights. What was he, second in lights?
Yeah.
Came in 2020. Always remember his first race weekend, crash in practice, crash in qualifying, crash in the race with Ed Carpenter Racing. He was like, oh no,
great.
Is this going to last? And well, it's definitely lasted. And he's a guy who's done quite well for himself. And if you're getting these results with Coyne, just imagine what you could do in a slightly upgraded seat, whether that's McLaren or an Andretti or wherever else. I don't know if he's going to get picked up by Penske or Ganassi, but hey, if you finish top 10 in points in a Coyne car, all bets are off in terms of...
That should earn you something.
in terms of the interest you're going to get, because I think that's pretty impressive. All right, what's your number 3?
Oh, what is my number 3? So I'm scanning. How about... let's talk Prema a little bit, because I don't think it was appreciated. 18th for Robert Schwartzman was impressive for that team. I think it was at his best finish of the year.
I believe. For all the issues they have, just getting him on track.
Right. And
I
then,
think
Callum Ilott, both drivers
finished the race.
I mean, Ilott, I think, was several laps down.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, and we talked a little bit about it last week, is, the climb to respectability joining IndyCar when the formula is so aging, because everybody has learned everything you possibly can. And you're coming in with nothing, no data. You don't even have a partnership with a team.
You booted Michael Cannon,
right,
allegedly.
Now, I'm not going to criticize Prema. I know this week has kind of been, it's kind of been a little bit pop. Like, we don't know what happened, right? Michael Cannon may have done something where it's like, oh, you got to get rid of him.
Yeah,
we don't know
the story
anything.
Coming from Cannon was they weren't listening to my ideas, so I left.
Right. You're only getting one side of the story.
That is true.
So it's tough to me to be like, well, Prema shouldn't have got rid of him. Like, what if he did something where you absolutely had to get rid of him? Like, what if HR got involved? Well, I don't know. But so it's easy to kind of push them while they're down, but you look at it right now, Schwartzman 24th, Ilott 26th in terms of full-time drivers. Only Abel is worse at 27th. You feel like if they can get both of their drivers in the leaders circle, it would be tremendous. I don't know I think that's probably next to impossible, but what is it, top 22?
Yeah, I don't think they're eligible because they don't have charters.
That's true. So they're not even eligible. But I think you look at it, Schwartzman comes up 18th. It ties his best finish of the season at Long Beach. And then you look at Callum Ilott, who we kind of felt like, well, Schwartzman's going to be the dude that has to figure it out, but Ilott's the known quantity. Schwartzman has the two best finishes of the season for this team, the 18th place finishes. The best for Callum Ilott has been 19th. So, I mean, maybe we're underappreciating what Schwartzman has been able to do with this team. He is just 2 points behind Louis Foster for Rookie of the Year right now. It's tremendously early. But a guy that's new to the series, with a team that's new to the series, I mean, if he could finish in the top, 24th is probably the apex of what I thought any Prema team driver could make. I mean, he has a shot. He's only 9 behind Stingray Robb. Maybe we didn't expect a lot out of Schwartzman, but I think, is it fair to say maybe he's overperforming through 5 races?
For Schwartzman, yeah, I think so. Just because he doesn't come from lights and have the experience at these tracks at all.
Right.
I think he's shown himself quite well.
I mean, you got to feel
considering the lack of track time for several weekends.
Right. I mean, I think we look at Schwartzman as maybe overachieving, Ilott underachieving so far. Anything can happen, of course, this weekend with qualifying weekend. I feel if Prema can get both of their cars in, I think that's a huge, huge boost for them. But, for Robert Schwartzman, kudos. We don't talk a lot about him. Broadcast doesn't. It's not like he's in the picture in the top 10, 15, even top 20 most of the times. But for a dude that jumped in the deep end with a team that's jumped into the deep end, for a team that has struggled almost every weekend, at least Schwartzman's car in particular, to work out some gremlins, I've been impressed with the kid. What about your number 3?
My number 3. Is Marcus Ericsson just since he came to Andretti last year, the lone bright spot was a second at Detroit, right? But outside of that, it was a struggle. And I get that Colton Herta had another pit issue. I'm not sure if that was his fault or the team's. It looked like he stalled the car, right?
Yeah.
And then got it going with a hybrid. But Marcus Ericsson, just in general, it's been tough since he came to Andretti.
To say the least.
You'd like to think it turns around for him for the 500, but I don't know what to say, because he came over and you get an Indy 500 winner, a guy who's raced at Chip Ganassi Racing, legitimately challenged for a championship right in 2022. I think he finished 4th.
Yeah.
But he was leading the points for several weeks. He's won, 3-4 career races? But it's not worked out. And I don't know if this is a situation where after this year that they part their ways, or if we're looking at a guy who has had another rough start, but just needs a result to kickstart his career there at Andretti.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy that won races at Ganassi, 3 out of the 4 years he was there, of course, with the 500 win in 2022. He was a consistent contender, finished 6th all 3 years, or 3 of the 4 years at Chip Ganassi Racing, his final 3. And then since joining Andretti, you mentioned the one podium he had last year at Detroit, finished 15th in points. He is 16th this year, no top 5s. His best finish of 6th at St. Pete. Since then, it's been 21st, 12th, 20th, 26th. He's at times this week been slow at the 5 in practice. Not saying he's on. I mean, anything can happen this weekend. But yeah, what's missing? He's almost. I'm not saying it's all on him, but at the same time, he's on his way to losing his Andretti seat at this point.
He had a good run at Ganassi, and it's been shocking because last year, first year with a new team, you're pretty much going to give any driver a pass, right? And I get it's still early enough in this year you can turn around, but it's just puzzling that it just keeps, whether it's bad luck or no luck, mistakes. I mean, it's a combination of all three.
Yeah, you look at his, he had a Husky chocolate at Chip Ganassi. That was huge. He was almost in an unfair position because when he came in, Scott Dixon was king, and then you have the emerging superpower that is Alex Palou. And obviously the highlight was winning the Indianapolis 500, but he always just felt like that other Ganassi driver, and that wasn't entirely fair to him because he was finishing consistently with podiums and race wins each year, getting one or so, and being in the top 6, 7 in points. Like, I think it's pretty solid for a Ganassi driver. Now, did Husky Chocolate go away and that was a big part of him losing that seat? Or was it the Kiffin Simpson huge money that he brought that kind of pushed him in?
I mean, remember the contract stuff. He went to Andretti because he felt like Chip didn't want to keep him on, without bringing a boatload of sponsorship. And he's like, hey, I've won an Indy 500. I've done well in the championship. Like, I'm not I want to be a paid driver, not a pay driver.
And unfortunately, that seat probably would have been lost anyway when you have to go down to 3 for the charters, because Kiffin Simpson's bringing a hell of a lot of money.
Yes.
And then, of course, Dixon and Palou. So he's probably losing that seat anyway. But the drop in production from Ganassi to Andretti has been significant. And maybe it's something we should expect because Ganassi is at the apex of the series right now in terms of teams. But it has been very, very eye-opening as Marcus Ericsson has pretty much been an afterthought since going to Andretti.
Yes, and you think having an Indy 500 winner on your team is a big bonus. I still think it is, but it just has not worked out so far. All right, other things on the Indy GP, any other final thoughts from you on this race? I thought it was a solid event.
Yeah, I think it was a week where we weren't complaining about no passes for the lead. We actually had a couple. Yeah. So for that, I guess it delivered. But for me, it's okay. It's just another race. That's nice. Let's get on to the
main event.
Oval. Yeah.
All right. TV ratings, unfortunately, for this event were less than ideal. TV numbers in, and somehow they are down. 23.3%, 710,000 viewers. And this was with I think a later time window as well. Viewership peaked 823,000. Season, though, up 15% year to year compared to last year. Last year's race got 875,000 viewers.
How the hell did it get 875,000 viewers?
I don't know.
I mean,
I thought this was a better race by far.
Is what it is. I think the further we get from St. Pete, the more obvious it is that was an outlier. Right now we just love to have 1 million, let alone 1.4 million, but it's it's disappointing, but I guess not unexpected at this point. But I think it was Adam Stern that put out stiffer competition. Like, what the hell was on Sunday?
And there's an NBA playoff game on Saturday. There's always something.
There's always something going on, okay? And that's always kind of a convenient excuse. Even when there's nothing going on, there's something going on. So, I don't know. It's a Saturday afternoon. I think it's a little bit more difficult to get people to lock in. Maybe the biggest thing that hurts this race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is that it's not the Indianapolis 500.
Yeah.
I think.
Do you think there's ever a part in the series future where this race goes away if they get enough other events on the calendar? Or do you think this stays? I've gone back and forth on this.
I
like the way it kind of sets the tone. It's an easy entry point for May. Sure. It's certainly better from a financial standpoint to run the road course race than just have a first day of practice on a Saturday, which, okay, best case scenario, you're drawing 20,000, so that's probably half the crowd.
Yeah.
I mean, the GP, you're looking at 40 to 50,000 pretty much every year, weather-wise, as long as the weather's decent.
I would say in the first decade of this race being in existence, because we've done this now over
since 2014,
years?
I believe.
Yeah, so this was the 11th, 12th, at least the May race.
Yes.
The more it's around, the longer it's around, the more likely it is to stay. I felt like if it lasted 5, 6, 7 years and then they had enough other events, it would kind of fade away. But it's almost becoming, or it has become, part of the month. And I think the longer it goes to where it is part of the month, the more difficult it is to go away from it. I think it'd be a great problem to have to say, hey, we just don't have enough space on the calendar to have this race and then 2 weeks leading into the 500. We need to, boot it. That'd be great. I just don't see that happening. So it's fine for what it is, just as long as we're not coming back a second time, outside of pandemics.
Yes. Let's not have 3 races or 4 races or whatever there like we did see in 2020.
For sure.
Okay, let's talk about the Indy 500. The 109th running. It is Fast Friday, which IMS inked a new sponsor, Turtle Wax.
Ooh.
The sponsor for Fast Friday this year and moving forward. So get your car waxed and cleaned up. But what we've seen this week, and we didn't have any wall contact until Kiffin Simpson went airborne, so the car felt funny even when he got on track, tried to push through. Obviously that did not work out in his favor. He's okay, thankfully. They're going to a backup car. We've seen Graham Rahal struggle. We've seen Santino Ferrucci switch back to last year's chassis. We've seen teams go back to Kiffin Simpson. His chassis was used during the open test, so it's not like a complete disaster, but you look at where we're at, because we'll talk about qualifying at the front. I think we both agree Penske looks to be the team that's going to win the pole.
I don't see a front row lockout like we did last year, but my money is on one of the Penskes.
I would agree on both accounts there. In terms of who's in danger, I would have said the Prima cars, and I've been saying the Prima cars, but the problem with today, what we've seen as we record this again on Fast Friday, what we've seen is guys can get maybe a good first lap, solid second lap. It's consistency through 4 in terms of staying in the throttle. Part of that is they set a new record since Firestone's been tracking track temperatures of 138 degrees. Now, this only goes back to 2015, but still.
We've had some sweltering days at the Speedway in May.
2018 Indy 500 was super hot. So this says something. And also, so that factored in with the weather on Saturday and Sunday, much, much, much cooler. I mean, we're looking at, 15, 20 degrees cooler in terms of air temperature, ambient temperature. On Saturday, we're looking at around 70 on Saturday and around 75 for the high on Sunday. So way different conditions. So not only does that mean faster speeds, but also easier for the cars to be handled around the track.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing for tomorrow is the sun should be out most of the day. Maybe some more clouds on Sunday. But for a track that is so sensitive to any changes, temperature-wise, it is going to be a big change between yesterday, today, Thursday, Friday, and now this weekend. So I don't know what to take from yesterday and today, especially today in terms of speeds, and apply it to the next couple of days. I think if you're, and it's rarely been consistent in terms of who's been struggling all week. It seems like each day there's been somebody or somebody's, but today Carson Daly's talking about just how terrible the driver,
Carson Daly?
Or Carson Daly, excuse me. Connor Daly. Carson Daly's been saying it too. But
did you ever watch Stay Up Late? Like, you knew it was time to go to bed when the last call with Carson Daly came on.
When it was like, all right.
That was your, it's like, okay, let's go to bed.
Let's go to bed. Yes.
Let's go to bed.
I don't think I ever watched more than 5 minutes at a time.
Same.
Carson
this is a throwback.
I mean,
if you're under 35, you probably have no idea what you're talking about.
Remember him from Total Request Live. That's when I got
the under
first.
35s,
yes.
would not remember him from either.
Correct. But yeah, TRL is what I got from my first Carson Daly. But anyway, Connor Daly, who was top 3 yesterday, 3rd?
Yeah. I mean, he just had a 4-lap run that was solid. So he's 11th now.
But he was chasing it early. He said it was really terrible to drive. So you never know day to day what cars are going to do at the Speedway. And when we see such a drop in temperatures from Thursday, Friday into Saturday, Sunday, you never know. And then also factor in, and maybe this is going to be a benefit if it's not going to be too hot tomorrow, is getting those early qualifying spots.
Yes.
Right?
Always key.
Is always key. I mean, who's to say Penske doesn't go out tomorrow and put their initial guys all in the fast 12 and then they don't run again tomorrow?
Not if they don't draw early enough.
But that's the thing.
Yeah,
if you draw
that's the benefit.
if your 3 drivers go before, what would you say, maybe 12:30 because it starts at 11, maybe even before noon, and you're in the top 12 and nobody can challenge you to, you're done for the day potentially. So I don't know if there's a better way. Okay, here you go. Should there be a blind draw for qualifying, or should it be based on some sort of practice speed?
Blind draw.
You like the blind draw?
Yes.
Okay.
I love how it's set up now.
Gotcha.
Don't change it.
Settles that. But so much is dictated on when you qualify. But at least it's not going to start off, 63 at 11 o'clock, and by 3 o'clock it's 92.
No.
At least we're not having that.
The other thing that's been fun to watch today is how drivers are using the hybrid system, where something we've never seen. It used to be back in the day where you get faster each lap. Well, hasn't been that way for 25 years, maybe even almost 30 years at the Speedway. We're getting back to where you have a good first lap, slight step down, second lap, your third lap might be as fast as your second lap, and then your fourth lap could be potentially your fastest lap because you're deploying the hybrid around the track all the way. And so it's just added an interesting element where it's not you need a big first speed,
right?
Because you're going to lose, up to half a mile an hour each lap. If you're really consistent, you're not losing that much. But so that's another factor I think is fascinating where, to be fair, we all said hybrid on a Speedway, it's kind of pointless, but
true.
The way I've seen teams use it where you're trickling it, 1% at a time on the fourth qualifying sim lap, I think has been fascinating to see.
Well, Joseph Newgarden said it in terms of the strategery and when to deploy and regen. This was going to be the first time we've really seen where it is going to be a big deal on when they do it. So,
and this is qualifying. Imagine the race.
Right, exactly. So you hope that it adds an element of intrigue this weekend to qualifying and then the race. It sounds like it will, but we are in an unknown territory, of course, with this hybrid at Indianapolis. So we'll see how it plays this weekend and race weekend as well.
All right, so let's make last row shootout picks and pole picks. Who's your pick for pole?
Who's my pick for pole? I will go... Man, oh man. I said it'd be a Penske. I'll go Joseph Newgarden will be on pole.
Okay, I will go Scott McLaughlin to go back to back. He's looked really good, and as we're recording, we just had another crash.
Oh, did we?
Kyle Larson.
Uh-oh.
Not ideal. So that really makes his weekend a lot trickier with everything, but Kyle Larson has just hit the wall. So he's out of the car and looks like he's okay. But Taking a look at the replay.
Not ideal, huh?
No.
Can't be. I mean,
going into 3.
Kiffin Simpson's earlier today was a big
and
hit.
Just lost it mid-corner.
Yeah.
So, 3. With that said, you can probably remove him from your Fast 12.
Yeah, it's always tough. I mean, if you do something Friday, you can be chasing it, especially. But at the very least, both Kiffin Simpson and Kyle Larson are with really well-funded, well-established teams with backup cars ready to go, right? They're not, this is our only speedway car type thing. So maybe it takes him out, Larson out of contention for pole, or at least Fast 12. I don't think we're going to see him in the back, though. But I will go, Newgarden to be on pole. My slow 4, I'm going to put, you know what? I think there's one Prema car back there.
I do too.
I'll say Schwartzman after I sung his praises earlier. I'll go Schwartzman. I will go, who else do I want to go back there?
Don't think too hard. I assume Graham Rahal is one of your picks.
Rahal back there. I mean, Devlin DeFrancesco back there. Do you put Louis Foster back there?
You got 4. So is that your 4?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Okay. So I'm going McLaughlin, pole, and then I'm going to go with my last row, Graham Rahal, Robert Schwartzman, Kevin Simpson, only because of the crash, and then Jacob Abel.
I forgot Abel. That's a good one. Who misses this race?
I think we're looking at a rookie. I think we're looking at a crash being more likely than a slow car. I actually think Graham Rahal will make it because I think one of the rookies will crash. I'm going to go with Schwartzman crashing. There's just, he's gone this far, right, without having a moment. And the Prema team, they've looked better today than I ever would have anticipated. But I said this to some other people. I said, I guarantee it's Jacob Abel or a Prema that missed this race. I still feel confident in that.
Well, and look at it this way. Prema has 1 or 2 drivers back there. This is the first time they've gone through everything with the series this season. But this will be the first time where, all right, we have to make some changes and we got to figure this out now. It's just a lot of pressure for a new team, regardless of how much experience you have in terms of the personnel you have and who you hired, is the unfamiliarity of the situation. And I think that could be something that bites him. So you said Schwartzman. I will go Louis Foster.
Okay. He's actually had surprisingly decent speed today, currently 24th.
But both Schwartzman and Foster, I could see pushing it a bit too much tomorrow and putting it into the wall. I mean, if they can get through today, I think that'd be a big deal to not be chasing it then for the weekend. But I do think for both of us, we're looking at a rookie as missing this race.
For sure. Taking a look at the schedule for the weekend for qualifying practice session 8:30 on FS2. Then qualifying starts at 11 a.m. on FS1. They shift at 1:30 to FS2. Then 4 to 6, I believe, on Big Fox. Then on Sunday, you have practice 1 o'clock on FS2. So they'll do the Fast 12 practice first, or no. It'd be the other way. It'd be the last row practice followed by Fast 12. Then, as far as the actual qualifying on Sunday, it doesn't start till 4 o'clock on Fox, and it's 4 to 7.
Okay. So what's the practice on Sunday?
So you have the last row and then the Fast 12 practice sessions.
Okay.
Separately.
You don't have an all skate on?
No.
Sunday?
I don't believe so because that's on Monday. That's that Monday session that they moved. And in terms of the specifics, because, well, there's a lot of TV jumping back and forth.
Right.
So you look at on Sunday, you have top 12 practice 1 to 2, last chance 2 to 3, and then top 12 qualifying 4:05 to 5:05, last chance 5:15 to 6:15. Then 6:25 to 6:55 is the Firestone Fast 6. Remember, they have to do another additional run. and then the TV window ends at 7. I don't like it.
I don't like
it
either.
Especially with how hard these cars have been to drive with the hybrid. Now, I think it'll be a lot easier this weekend as temps cool down. But yeah,
it's just, I guess, I don't know.
Doing it for the show.
For TV, I know, I get it. I just think it's silly. I really don't. I'm not really locked in for the pole. Like if you're in the top 6, you can win the race. If you're in the top 12, you can win the race. You can't win the race if you don't make the race. Mm-hmm. So for me, the last row shootout is much more entertaining for me than pole.
I agree. And it's overshadowed the last several years, in my opinion. Yes, we've had big speeds, but you're still buzzing from what happens in that by the time you get to Fast 12 and then now Fast 6 in addition. I guess I would do the opposite. I would do the pole first, but I know there's a lot of money on the line and all that stuff. I don't know. It's anticlimactic to me because no matter if you start first or 6th or 10th, you can win the Indianapolis 500. You can't win the race if you're 34th. For sure. And the other big news of the day, the TV blackout for those in Central Indiana lifted. They will air the race. Fox coverage starts at 10 a.m. Eastern. They will air it again in the evening as well, like they typically do on delay. So it'll air both times on Fox. Grandstand sellout is not official, but they're expected to get there. Less than 1,000 tickets remain. 232,000 grandstand seats, 100,000 estimated for the infield, 20,000 in suites, plus obviously all the personnel. So well over 350,000 in terms of what does this mean moving forward? Well, it's the biggest attendance, biggest crowd since the 100th running in 2016. What does this mean in terms of if they sell out the grandstands? Does that mean this will happen moving forward? No, not to be taken that way. That any year there's a sellout, the blackout will be lifted. Yeah, you just treat it as a year-to-year type thing. I think, honestly, it's because the Indy market, it was going to be a terrible number because the Pacers have a home Eastern Conference Finals playoff game at 8 p.m. The Sunday night of the race. You're not getting a good number for your re-air in the market, so I think they're being proactive, along with the fact that yes, the race will sell out, and they can say, and they deny that the Pacers game had anything to do with it. But they're lying. You can't tell me it didn't. You can't tell me it didn't because you need your primary market to get a good number, and since they can say, hey, look, we're going to sell out, you are able to skirt around it. Doug Bowles said by the end of qualifying weekend, there will be no tickets left for the Indianapolis 500. We thought we were close last year, and I think the forecast kind of prevented that late. We thought we could get there maybe in 23. They've been inching closer to this again, and they finally done it. So very impressive. And it's Indiana weather, and no matter where you are, they can't predict the weather more than a couple days in advance. So, I mean, take this with a grain of salt. But next Sunday, as of right now, I don't know if you could have a more perfect day. 71 and sunny. Shh, just stop. Just stop. Don't. I'm just saying. Just don't. But at least it looks like the temperatures aren't going to be terrible. I think that at the very least we can say, because the last 2 days here in Indiana have been downright summer-like. Very hot. Humid and mid to upper 80s. But it's dropping off starting tomorrow, obviously, with the lower temperatures down in Indianapolis. But just long range, there's not even... It's just a lot of 70s in there. So it's not going to be 95 at the race. We know that, which will be great. So it's just astounding that we're going to go over a week probably with no tickets available. And then the resale market, I wonder... you'll have general admission still available. That's true. You'll have GA. So you'll just... That will be the only outlet, or for people who are, third-party sites, right? Right. Exactly. And that'll go to the highest bidder. So, yeah, it's a good sign. Excited for this weekend. Excited to see what happens. We both hate it that only one car is going home. You like to at least have 35 or 36, which we haven't had 36 since 2019. We've had, I think, 35 since then, but... Yeah, here, there, but... It'd be nice to get more, and Well, that's up to the series to make it more attractive.
Well, especially if one of them was Catherine Legg, would be nice, right?
For sure. All right, if you agree or disagree with us, we'd love for you to interact with us. You can always find us on social media, on Twitter /X, and on Instagram. Our handle is IndyCar Podcast. On Facebook, just search for New Track Record. You can email us, newtrackrecordpodcast@gmail.com. Send us your questions, comments, rants, concerns, whatever you have that way. You can support us via Patreon, patreon.com/newtrackrecord. Thanks to Xavier and others for their support. And as always, download and listen on your favorite podcasting platform, whether that is Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, mailbag time, and we've had to reduce some things just because there's quite a few entries and a lot, as one would expect this time of year in terms of mailbag entries. But we start and go back to what we had going back late last week. In terms of rate the race, first off, we forgot to rate the Barber race.
We did?
Yes.
So we had everybody else's. We didn't have ours.
And I didn't mention though the number either.
Okay,
so,
I had a 6.
Yeah, I had a 6 as well.
Best.
5.3 is what people said. So people are pretty upset.
We're much more optimistic than
Indy
people.
GP.
7.
I go 7.5.
Okay.
And right in the middle, listener said 7.3.
Okay.
There was one email from Ron who said, rate the race 0, IndyCar, you have a problem.
Ooh, 0 for the GP?
Yeah.
Ouch.
So I think that's more of a Palou dominance thing. Which is fair. Elsewhere.
All I said is, though I said this before we started recording, let's just be thankful that Alex Palou is not a Penske driver. Because the noise from people that this was rigged or whatever would just be immense.
It would be unbearable. Unbearable.
So thankfully,
it is a blessing that it is. Yeah, that's not a factor. Jeremy from HBG said, the intro music is back. Yes, I found the intro music cleaning out my Google Drive files.
How long was it missing?
For a while.
Oh yeah.
Because I didn't have it saved anywhere. And I thought I'd had it from an email because I think, one of us had sent it to each other years ago, just like trying to upload it, and I found it after cleaning out some files. So that was exciting.
Is it Delta Force?
No, no, we'd have to pay for that.
True.
I wish.
Fox is paying for it. It seems.
Yes, they are, and I think that's been cool. Poet Shevchenko. I just watched the Indy Lights at Indy Road Course. What stuck out to me was how much like the IndyCar, the race was. The top 5 had gaps very similar to the IndyCars at Barber. No aero screen, no hybrid. Could just be a car that everyone 100% knows, I guess, and that's a newer car. That's the crazy part.
Yeah,
but yes, I would agree.
5 years old, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I've enjoyed the IndyCar or the Indy Lights races this year. I mean, Dennis Hogger has won 3 out of 4.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they've had total. This dude, you talk about potential. We'll see how he does. He's going to have to grow in the ovals, but the dude raced multiple seasons in F2. One races at F3 and F4. This dude has much more experience than anybody else in Indy Lights, and he's performing as such. So could he run away with the championship, and B, find himself in IndyCar next year? It's entirely possible.
For sure. Elsewhere on the mailbag for this week, DeGuerra disagreeing with us on some past Indy 500s and our thoughts on that, saying, let's see here. You were wrong about the best rookie in this last week's episode. Linus Lundqvist finished 16th in last year's standings. I would also argue he was the best available free agent, not VK. Compare their rookie seasons. I still think VK was the best free agent in terms of experience. Lundqvist comes with a lot of talent, don't get me wrong. Right. And then adds, what was wrong about the entertainment value of the Indy 500 in 2022? Wasn't the battle between Award and Ericsson exciting enough for Americans, or was it the wrong guy who won in the end? 23 race was a bleep show with all the red flags, however. I just think when you compare 22 to 23 and 24, it certainly was not at the same level.
Yeah.
Which it is unfair because it's an insane level where
correct.
Just
We've been
Newgarden
by
leads only the last lap. He's never led lap 199. I saw a stat that Connor Daly has led as many laps at Indianapolis as Joseph Newgarden. And it's 69. Isn't that crazy? It's hard to believe.
It's hard to believe, but yeah, I mean, we've been spoiled with 500s. We've put it. We expect a ton. Every 500 needs to be a banger, is what we always say. And reality is, every 500 isn't going to be a banger. But we've been blessed, and hopefully it continues this year.
Elsewhere on the mailbag, we're not going to dive into the. Can we, have practice start on Monday? We say this every year. We got into it on the Twitter machine with that.
We did. It would be nice if we could start, because the early weather this week, early in the week, was sketchy. It'd be nice to have another day.
Replies on IndyCar making the change in terms of race start times. Gateway moved to 8 p.m. Eastern on Fox. It's a Sunday night oval race. I can't recall a time IndyCar ever doing a Sunday night race.
I can't remember anything.
Yeah. So, this is cool. The downside is it makes it harder for people who just come from, Indy area to make a day trip. You obviously have to get a hotel, but this will help ratings immensely.
Well, yes.
And you're avoiding NASCAR.
Yes.
That's why they made these changes. Road America moved up to 1:30 Eastern on June 22nd. Mid-Ohio moved up to 1 Eastern on July 6th. Iowa, I believe race 1 moved up to 1 Eastern, which that means it's noon local. Mid-July in Iowa, that also makes it a little more bearable. Yeah. And then Toronto moved up to noon Eastern on July 20th.
Being proactive.
Yes.
Which is good to see.
I hope for Gateway that helps sell tickets. They're going to increase the pyro budget, they said.
Yeah, that's always
which is
good.
Great.
Well, yeah, if it's actually a night race.
Yeah, it will finish at dark. So
that's the thing, is like the last couple of years, it's not even been a night. It's finished in twilight, not even at night.
Thoughts on this? Hunter's Way 67. At least they're being proactive for once. Agreed. Look, they're avoiding NASCAR on all these. They're helping themselves out. Jeremy from HBG, got to give them credit. They saw the results and realized that the schedule is not working out in their favor. Kudos to IndyCar, Fox, and the tracks for being flexible enough to attempt to make things better. Really, it's only Gateway that had to make a huge sacrifice here.
Right.
Racer Mac RTP1 completely takes me out of staying over from the Saturday Silver Crown race. Yep. Lynn _IndyCar. Nice to see Fox and IndyCar work to improve their TV coverage. Look, this is good. I just hope that this works for Gateway and doesn't mean they try this and the TV ratings rate, but the crowd dwindles even more and they're off the schedule in a year or two.
Yeah.
That's
let's hope not.
My ultimate fear. Parkside Cards. Apparently they were not at Target today at least.
What an outrage.
They were supposed to be. We were told they were. But one of our listeners sent us Rob Call. Our Cole said, Parkside Cards, it's a bummer. The new IndyCar cards are not available in Target stores. Had to be shipped. So we'll see. But it may depend on the market for that as well. Other things, you said it's okay, healthy even to demand better from the thing you loved. And that's in response to Pato Ward's comments about the car. Arkol said he's dead on, and I can't believe that he's the only driver who thinks this. Well, he's not, but he's one of the few that can speak his mind, like you said. You said. Jeff Cerneski, we have a car that needs to go on a diet.
Yep.
It's true. Don't know how they're going to...
It's hefty.
make that better. And then picks for which driver, biggest threat to be 34th, and I'm just going to go through a few of what people had to say. Mom 2X over 2002 said Rahal and Santino.
Now, this was after Thursday's practice.
Racelets podcast said Rahal and Ferrucci. A lot of votes for these two. Tune HD1 said Rahal. Heil Mike said Schwartzman. Lynn _IndyCar went with a Prema car. Pagoda Press said concern for Santino and Rahal Letterman Lanigan. And then Cruz _Indy said Schwartzman as well. So noticing a trend here. A lot of the same drivers seem to be at risk so far. And with that,
what else we got?
Comments on Penske. New car to hit the track in October or November per Penske. Honda, they're doing everything they can to renew contracts good through 26. They want to renew. One or two manufacturers also shown interest at this point, which we mentioned last week, probably Porsche and Toyota. Few replies here First from Poet Shevchenko, should have publicized demo laps throughout next year. Also have a full-size mock-up of the car on display at every race next season. Kyle Conley, 59. Unveil the render next week then. Yeah, right? Skyscraper Tree 1. Well, he didn't say what year.
That's true.
Also
he just
true.
said October, November, right?
My biggest thing is, if we don't have some big announcement on Carb Day, I will be, for the series, not for IMS or the Indy 500, but for the series, I will be very, very disappointed. And I unfortunately feel like we're tracking toward that.
Even a rendering of the car.
Just something.
Something to get us excited about. And like you said, not just track. I don't care about, they're adding a, antique race in October at the Speedway. I don't care.
It's got to be IndyCar series specific.
Yeah.
Yes.
For sure.
All right, that wraps up the mailbag. Time for news and notes as we chug along. Favorite new livery that you've seen? There have been a lot of cool ones.
Oh, man.
Do you have a favorite? We've had a lot of announcements. Marcus Ericsson in the Allegra car, which is pretty cool. He has seasonal allergies. We're seeing more consumer brands than I can recall.
Which is great, which we should get for the 500. Unfortunately, we don't see him anywhere else on the schedule. Who's driving the tequila car for
Louis Foster?
I like that look.
That's cool.
We're getting back into too many cars looking the same.
Yes.
Kind of thing.
Too much blue and white.
Yes.
Speaking of blue and white, David Malukas, Clarence Technologies, on as a primary. First time we've seen a primary sponsor for his car all year.
How about that?
It'll be there for the 500 and Detroit.
Let's go. Got to start somewhere.
Other new ones, you have obviously Ferrucci's Home for Our Troops car. Let's see. Who else that was new, just released? Kyle Kirkwood with Siemens, which is a big consumer brand for businesses. Mentioned Ericsson. I think both those cars look good. With Kirkwood's car, it's confusing because it looks like Ericsson's car last year.
Right, yeah.
That's going to throw me
off.
Yes. You mentioned a Des Nuda Tequila on with Louis Foster. Obviously, Jacob Abel's car, which we touched on before, looks amazing. Felix Rosenquist in the Creed car. Creed channel on Sirius XM. Marcus Armstrong with Charter and Spectrum as a new sponsor. Connor Daly's AM/PM car looks really cool. Convenience store chain.
Like a 7-Eleven, isn't it?
Mm-hmm, yeah, kind of like that. Looks really good. They're tied with British Petroleum, but purple on that one. Stingray Rob's, the video release was cool.
Yeah.
But his car looks good, kind of more like American flag colors. And then IDRA, which is an Italian company, is on both the Prima cars as well.
Italian company with an Italian team.
Yes. So all in all, a lot of good delivery announcements. Tire Rack will be with Scott McLaughlin for Detroit. So that's another thing. Other notes, we talked about the grandstand sellout. We talked about Penske's comments. We've kind of rattled through a lot of the stuff here.
Yeah,
Will Power set to make his acting debut.
Oh!
His brother, who's a comedian, has written a short film, and then they're trying to shop that off. So that's kind of cool. But he said the acting was really hard. Harder than being an IndyCar driver.
I can see that.
FS1. So Fox has unveiled their lineup in terms of who will be covering the Indy 500. You have, it's a long list. You have Chris Myers, Danica Patrick, Tony Stewart for pre-race. Obviously, Will Buxton, Townsend Bell, Hinchtown, James Hinchcliffe in the booth. Kevin Lee, Jamie Little, Georgia Henneberry as pit reporters. Aaron Andrews and Tom Rinaldi will do features, which that's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
To have them.
Cool to have Tony Stewart too as well.
Absolutely.
Danica doesn't bother us as much as she bothers other people.
Yeah, it's fine. She does a good job.
She does a good job. She has some cliche things she drops, the what does she always say, rocket ships, the wheels and stuff like that. But she don't bother me, I guess, more than other people do.
You have Mountain Dew, which has basically bought the backside of the JW Marriott in downtown Indianapolis. Giant Mountain Dew bottle. I mean, this is wild. It is. I mean, that hotel's like 30-some stories tall?
Yeah, right. It's two-sided for the first time that I can recall, right?
I can't recall either. But that's kind of cool.
Very much so. You have Will Buxton just dropping random artwork of the pagoda.
He now is painting.
Yeah, he painted or did a second one today. He posted of the pagoda.
Tom Brady and Jimmy Johnson will be in the fastest seat in sports. So not only is it back, but Jimmy Johnson will drive. Tom Brady will ride. So that is really cool.
You'll have Brady and Gronk on site then on race day with Gronk in the. Is Gronk part of the Fox broadcast, or is he just like
Snake Pit? Yes.
Yeah, I didn't know. Okay, so I didn't know if that was like I didn't know if he's like the Grand Marshal of the Snake Pit or something. So he'll fit right in there.
Oh, no doubt. Arturo Chacon Cruz. Hopefully I said that correct. Will sing God Bless America. He is the 2005 winner of Operalia, previous lead singer and roles for the Washington National Opera, Los Angeles Opera, and others. Obviously very accomplished. Never heard of him, but obviously very accomplished indeed.
Is the anthem being done by Kim Cornelison?
Well, that will be Back Home Again in Indiana.
Okay.
The anthem has not been announced. Okay. I don't believe the anthem singer.
Gotcha.
So yeah,
we're still in the running, is what you're saying.
On that. Other broadcast details. So FS1 is going to have one of their shows on site at the Indy 500 next week. First things first, with Nick Wright, Chris Broussard, and Kevin Wildes will shoot on location Thursday and Friday to help promote the Indy 500. Sounds good, but I would think Nick Wright will just talk Chiefs football.
Is that what he does?
Yeah, that's what he does. They'll talk NFL the whole time while race cars are
cars are
going on in the background, at least on the Friday. So I don't know. We'll take it. More promotion, especially to people outside of racing. And then IndyCar Radio with some changes, and this is cool. So Davey Hamilton will not be in the booth with Mark Jaynes because he will be on strategy for Jack Harvey with Ryan Reinbold. So congrats with him. Zach Veach will be the analyst for qualifying weekend. Anders Krohn for carb day and race day.
All right.
So they're both back. They've obviously been with IndyCar Radio before. They'll do an outstanding job.
Nice.
But that's exciting to have those additions and for Davey to have that opportunity. This was on Actions Detrimental, which I believe is a podcast, NASCAR podcast. We're not a NASCAR show, so we're clueless on these things.
Don't know.
But Kyle Busch says he had an Indy 500 deal signed, sealed, and delivered twice. One time with M&M's. Joe Gibbs of Joe Gibbs Racing said no, so M&M's would have been the sponsor. And then another time with Chevy, but it ended up going to Larson and his 2-year deal. Now, there was a rumor that one of those times Menards was set to sponsor, I think, Kyle Busch, if I'm not mistaken. I know Menards played a role.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunate to see. I kind of think like if we would have gotten Kyle Busch instead of Kyle Larson, we'd be like, oh man, we got to get Kyle Larson to the 500. So I think it's beneficial. Hopefully Kyle Busch jumps in maybe as soon as next year. I don't know if McLaren wants to keep doing this extra car for different people. I don't know. But I think Kyle Busch at some point in the near future races in the Indianapolis 500. And, kind of unfortunately, he's becoming more and more of an afterthought in Cup. June will be the 2-year anniversary of his last win.
Which is wild. I mean, part of it's because he changed teams.
Right, but, there was his dominance in his prime was just insane across all three. I mean, when he was doing trucks and Xfinity and Cup, he was sweeping weekends.
That's true. And now they got upset that he was doing that, so he can't really do that anymore.
Which, I get it too. That's kind of more developmental stuff. I get it. But, he's not too far removed from some dominating performances in Cup. But I do think we see him at some point. And now that he's not with Gibbs, correct?
Correct.
Maybe that window is open. If McLaren wants to offer it, come back around and say, hey, now that Larson has done his 2 and done for now, are you interested?
Other notes, Simon Pagenaud will be back with Scott McLaughlin for the Indy 500. Colton Herta has a special number, so he's 26, as always, but it will be the Dan Weldon, font. Dan Weldon 26 font for the Indy 500s. 20 years since Dan Weldon's win at Andretti for the Indy 500. J.R. Hildebrand, he will be back with Arrow McLaren, not racing, but he'll be on the 6th stand for the race. So that's cool to see him back. Some Indy Lights news. Davey Hamilton Jr. will compete in all oval event weekends starting June 15th with HMD Motorsports. And then they also updated their start times. Gateway will be on Sunday, June 15th at 4:30 Eastern on FS1. Road America, Sunday, June 22nd, 11 a.m. Eastern on FS1. In Mid-Ohio, Sunday, July 6th, 10:30 a.m. Eastern on FS1. So at least all on FS1.
That's good.
Obviously good for them. Fox, new streaming service, Fox One, set to launch later this year. So that will be the comparable thing to Peacock, I guess. And you'll obviously have 100 Days to Indy streaming on Fox Nation, which is first episode going to be on Fox next Saturday, I believe, at 1:30 Eastern in the afternoon. And let's see, just a few other small things to get to. First driver on track, Justin. Did you know who was the first driver on track?
No, I didn't see who was on first on track.
Alex Palou.
Yeah, okay. Should have known.
Chad 200 with the stat, but first driver on track during the month of May, date back to 1984. First driver on track has never gone on to win the race. Elio in 2014, Marco Andretti 2006. Runner-up finishes. Elio and Briscoe, only two drivers that went on to qualify on pole position. So Alex Palou trying to break it. Last year's first driver on track was Will Power, who started second, finished 24th. So keep that in mind, race fans. And finally, congrats to Alexander Rossi. He and his wife Kelly announced the arrival of their son Benjamin, who apparently was born like over a week ago. This was like the Wednesday before the GP and kept it secret.
Nice.
So, but
congrats.
Good for them. Congrats.
Yeah.
And with that, there are no good tweets this week, so we get to our random split air driver of the week.
I did like Marco's comments about, these kids now have so many buttons. On this. It wasn't a tweet, but
that was a
I
comment.
Guess it was a comment.
That was funny.
But all these, now that he's one of the elder statesmen all of a sudden. But all right, we're going to the Indy Racing League in the late 90s and really the fertile ground of the IRL, similar to mid 2000s kart. And we're going with Jarrett Schrader.
Jarrett Schrader. I've heard of him.
Okay. So he raced in the 1997 and the 1999 through 2002 seasons, 20 career starts, including the 1999, 2000, and 2001 Indianapolis 500s. His best finish was fourth at the 2000 Vegas Indy 300, won by Al Unser Jr. In that same 2000 season, he led the Rookie of the Year standings until his car was struck by other drivers during the final two races to knock him out of the rookie points lead. Doesn't that read like Jarrett Schrader wrote that himself? He led the Rookie of the Year standings until his car was struck by other drivers. So what could have been, but he raced for a multitude of different teams: McCormick Motorsports, Cobb Racing, TriStar Racing, and our favorite PDM Racing.
Poor dumb mechanics.
Overall, his first race was at Walt Disney World in 1996-97 season. Finished 14th in that race. We mentioned his best finish at overall was at Vegas in 2004. His two finishes in the Indianapolis 500, he attempted, he started 3 500s, best starting position of 21st in 1999 with a G-Force Infinity for Cobb Racing. And his best finish was 14th a year later in a Dallara Oldsmobile for TriStar Racing. He did some SCCA racing in the early 90s, and that's pretty much it. That's all really we know about him. 5 years overall, 20 career starts with 4 teams, 2 top 10s, 1 top 5 at Vegas in 2000. Jarrett Schrader, this week's random split era driver of the week. I do not think he did USF 2000. I think he did Toyota Atlantics as well. But that's it for Mr. Jarrett Schrader.
All right, and that does it for us. We'll be back next week after hopefully an exciting weekend of qualifying to recap what went down and preview the 109th running of the Indianapolis 500-mile race. For Justin Kinney, I am Caleb Hatch. Thanks for listening to New Track Record Podcast.